Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. I'm Mary Kay Cabot with you. It is the Hey Mary Kay edition of the podcast, recording this about 5:15 on Monday. We are back from Chicago. The Browns 31-3 losers, of course, in the Windy City. Mary Kay, you just put up a post about Kevin Stefanski. He was asked today on his Zoom about his job security, and he basically said, as you'd expect in very Kevin Stefanski fashion, it's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking about the Buffalo Bills, but a lot of other people thinking about it. So that's where we're going to start. Christian in Hudson. Hey, Mary Kay, are the Browns more likely to fire both Stefanski and Barry, or only one of them? And if only one, who?
It's a great question. And the truth of the matter is, none of us has any idea what Jimmy Haslam is thinking right now. Now, if I had to guess, I would think that Andrew Barry is pretty safe because Jimmy Haslam in March gave him a mandate that he had to nail the NFL draft this year. And Andrew did that. He did it with flying colors. This draft is probably the best draft, one of the best drafts that I've ever seen the Browns have in my entire time of covering them. So I think Andrew understood the assignment and delivered beautifully on it. When you consider guys like Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, who will be NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Then you've got Quinshon Judkins. He's also in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year, as is Harold Fannin. Then you've got the quarterbacks. You might end up with a starter out of one of those two guys, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, maybe some backups. And then, of course, they have the first round pick for next year that they got out of that trade down from number 2 to number 5 with the Jaguars. So I think Andrew is pretty safe based on the strength of this draft, which lays the foundation for Super Bowl window 2. So I'm going to say that Andrew is safe. As far as Kevin Stefanski is concerned, I really don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. What I think should happen is what Jimmy Haslam said would happen back in March, and that was with the Browns trying to figure out who their quarterback of the future is this year, that Kevin would have a chance to coach the new quarterback of the future, that he probably wouldn't hold his feet to the fire this year, and that would understand that there would be rookie issues and problems. Having said that, however, he also said 3-14 is not going to cut it. And he said that in July at his annual training camp address. So I don't know which way he's going to go with this. I think Kevin should have a chance to come back and try to work with either Shedeur Sanders next year in his second season or whoever the starting quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, so the Andrew thing is an interesting question. And I'll be honest, like just going off of, the questions we're getting from people, I think fans are pretty divided on this. Like, there's one text or question I just opened specifically about Andrew and saying that they think that one of the issues on this team is talent. And of course that goes back to, Andrew, the evaluator. So I do wonder how much weight they're going to put into the success of this draft class. And I think it's been a good draft class, but I also think there's still a couple of questions about it as well, right? Like, Carson Schlesinger, no question there. Mason Graham has been good. Has he been number 5 pick good yet? Quinshon Judkins has been good, but right now the running game isn't doing anything. I don't think that's his fault. I think Quinshon Judkins is a good player. And I think the other part of this is he still has to make his most important pick, and that's going to be the quarterback. And we haven't seen if he has the ability to actually make that pick yet. So I could understand if they looked at this and said, hey, this draft was really good. We added some talented players. Even Fannon's going to be sort of I think he's a fantastic player. It's going to be sort of spinning your wheels, though, because he's going to be replacing David Njoku. So I still think there's talent deficiencies on this roster across the board. And I think a lot of that comes down to decisions Andrew has made. At the same time, he did just have a good draft. I do want to acknowledge that. And I do want to acknowledge I'm high on Mason Graham and Quinshon Judkins and all these. Like, I think this was a very good draft. But I do wonder, was this draft alone enough to kind of save the 5 previous years?
Well, it's a great question. And of course, we also know that a lot of the evaluation of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry right now, it kind of got a little bit messed up with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, because he was supposed to be their Super Bowl I quarterback. And he was supposed to take them to the brink of the Super Bowl or the Super Bowl, get them to the playoffs in most or all of his 5 seasons here. And that just was, as Jimmy Haslam described at the owners' meetings, a swing and a miss. Now, I maintain that it was largely a swing and a miss because Deshaun Watson had a fractured shoulder, didn't come back well from that in 2024, and then suffered a ruptured Achilles. So I think it's tough to really get a handle on what Kevin and Andrew would have been all about together had the Deshaun Watson trade worked out for them. It didn't, and they were never really able to replace the quarterback to this point. I mean, I that is one thing that I keep coming back to. I feel like if the Deshaun Watson thing didn't work out, you've got to find a way. You've got to find a quarterback. You've got to find someone else that can come in and win football games for you, right? And they haven't been able to do that, not even this year. And I know there are extenuating circumstances this year, but you should have been able to find someone that could win games the way that Joe Flacco did for you in 2023. That was someone who they found that was able to come in and win some football games for you. And they tried that. They went to that well again. Didn't work this year. But they needed some consistent quarterback play, and that has been the whole problem. I also think that receiver has been a problem. And they thought they found their man in Jerry Jeudy. Now we have to see, because he's got to bounce back from this year and prove that he is the receiver that the Browns thought he was next year, because this year it just hasn't looked good. So you're right. There are definitely issues on the roster, and they've got to figure some of these things out. But I just keep getting the feeling that Andrew nailed it well enough with this draft. And once you start getting into the awards and all that kind of stuff that's going to happen after the season, I think the vibe is going to bring them back to Andrew.
Yeah, and well, and the optics too of firing a GM who drafted, the defensive rookie of the year. I mean, there's an optics thing there too. Like, how does that look if, you win these awards and then it's like, well, the guy that drafted him is gone. I also think though too, just this idea of, and look, I think we probably disagree on where this football team is. I mean, I think this football team is probably 2 years away from being legitimately like competitive, as in, can make the playoffs, can maybe win some playoff games. Now look, anything I could see them winning if things go right and they find a quarterback. They could win 7 games next year. But I think they're still a couple years away from that. I'm assuming you would disagree with that, though. Kind of how far away
No,
this team is.
I really don't disagree with that. I mean, next year is, I've said this many times before, next year is the year where they will put sort of the finishing layer on. This was the foundation of Super Bowl window 2. And next year they will add a whole nother layer of players to that with 2 first-round picks. They have to find their quarterback, and they will add to the pile in other ways. So if they get the quarterback right next year and they can win with the quarterback, and whoever it is, they find someone that they can win with, then they can contend next year. Because there were signs that they could contend this year if they had had the quarterback. Of course, they lost some games just by virtue of bad special teams play alone. But had they had a quarterback, I think that when you couple that with the defense and the way the defense was dominant this year and really has hovered around number 2 most of the season, I think they could have won some games this year. I think they could have won 7, maybe 8 games had they had some good quarterback play. And next year, perhaps they can do that or better, maybe even get to 9, 10 and start thinking about the playoffs. But it all comes down to the quarterback. If they don't have a quarterback who can win for them from week 1, then they're not contending. They're not. It all comes down to that. That makes all the difference in the world. Look at New England. Drake May, right? He changed their fortunes this year. That is what you need wherever you can get that guy. And who knows? I mean, if they decide that Shedeur Sanders is their quarterback of the future, is he going to need more time, more seasoning? I think it's a bit of a tough call. But somehow, some way, I just don't think there's much of an excuse for not being able to field a winning quarterback.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, this is like a whole off-season pod, right? What we're talking about here. So I'm a little bit farther down the road as far as like when we talk about finishing touches, right? I kind of view this upcoming off season, no matter who's in charge, whether it's Andrew or they make changes. I view this as sort of now you've got a chance again to add even more young talent, right? You've got these 2 first round picks. Hopefully, one of those guys will be a quarterback. That would be great. But you have these 2 first round picks. You have really high value picks on the first 2 days. Good pick to start off day 3. You can kind of continue to infuse this roster with talent. And then we start talking about, and then kind of whatever happens next year happens. You don't want to go through win 3 games next year. You can't do that. You've got to win. You've got to at least be sitting on December 15th. We've got to be sitting here saying this team is on the in the hunt graphic. They're not eliminated from the playoffs. A couple things bounce their way. Maybe they can sneak in and get a wild card, right? Like that would be real progress. And then 27 is kind of where you can start to say, now we can add a couple big free agents. Now we can add, again, you're going to add more young talent in another draft. Like, the NFL is a build it fast league. And, over a few off seasons, you can build it up pretty quickly. So I'm not quite as bullish on like next year necessarily as you are. Although, look, again, I'm with you. If they find the right quarterback and this thing takes off, and it could be like Jaden Daniels in Washington, right? Like anything could happen. But I think the path forward has been there all along. They just got to make sure they have the right guys doing it at GM and head coach.
Yeah, that is the big X factor right now heading into this offseason, is that we don't know exactly what changes are going to be made, who's going to be making the decisions, who's going to be coaching the football team, right? We just don't really know the answer to that. But I do really think that with the cap space that they will have next year, because I think they will have enough to add to the football team, and with the 2 first-round picks, and with some of the guys that they have coming back, and with the rookies from this year all getting tremendous amounts of experience and growing up and being more ready to play next year, I do think that, once again, it all comes down to getting good, consistent quarterback play. But I think there's enough there that you should be able to contend next year if you can win games with the quarterback that you put into place. Now, again, if that is Shedeur Sanders, I don't know if he's going to be ready to win right away next year. I don't know that yet. I think he's still going to be in the developmental stages because he will have only started 7 games this year, and it takes rookies at least a year to really assimilate everything that's going on and to come up that learning curve and to be ready to go out and win games in a meaningful fashion. So if it's Shedeur, I can't honestly say that I'm confident that they're going to hit the ground running and be ready to win right away. So it all comes down to that. But if they have that, I don't see any reason why, with this defense, with Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger and all those guys, and then Quinshon growing up and Harold Fanning growing up, and you add a receiver and you rebuild that offensive line, or at least you rebuild half of that offensive line, bolster it. I don't see any reason why they can't contend next year.
I think the key word there too is the growing up part, right? With these rookies, not in a bad way, but just in the natural kind of football development way, right? Like what is year 2 going to look like for Mason Graham? I think he's been impactful this year. Obviously, the numbers aren't there. So now is year 2 going to be there when he comes back? He understands what his body needs to look like. He understands what they want him to do a little bit. It gets a whole off season to be an NFL player, not prepare for like the combine and the draft and stuff. So how does he look coming back next year? Is he able to make that leap into maybe a Pro Bowl type defensive tackle, right? I don't know how much better Carson Schlesinger can get, but that's a scary thought, for Judkins. Now, what does he look like going into year 2? I think that's a big piece of this too, is how all of these guys go from what, for the most part, has been successful rookie years. Now, how do they stack on top of that and come back and make sure that trajectory continues?
Yeah, I mean, really, if these guys can take that necessary step up that you expect rookies to take in their second year, this could be quite a solid foundation on which to build this football team. And then you still have at least a handful, a half a dozen guys coming back that can make up the core of your football team. Again, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, maybe Joel Bitonio comes back for another year. We'll have to see how that goes. But if he comes back, then you're still in good shape at the left guard position, and you don't have to completely rebuild every single spot on the offensive line. So with that sort of core group of guys that would still be around, and I would include, you've got Grant Delpit in that category if he would come back. You've got Jerry Jeudy, depending on what happens there in the offseason, if they feel that he can still be a key building block for them on that offensive unit. So I think that they have enough veterans and enough rookies from this year. And then you're going to have to add a dozen good players next year, but they did it this year. And they have a lot of picks next year as well, and good, high, solid picks. So I think if you add another dozen quality players to this group, then you should be okay. But who's going to start at quarterback?
Who's going to start at quarterback? And then also, you are going to be counting on a lot of young guys again in key positions. So, maybe a top wide receiver, maybe a couple offensive linemen. But I do see a path forward with however long you want to play it out, right? There is a path forward that if you can continue infusing this team with young talent, keep trying to find that quarterback, however that looks, and that class is still continuing to take shape. That's really going to be the key to all of this. So let's move on to a specific Andrew Berry question. This comes from A-Rob in Des Moines, Iowa. It says, "Hey, Mary Kay, when Andrew Berry is evaluated this offseason, does the organization need to consider whether he's the right evaluator at OL, wide receiver, and quarterback specifically? The draft record there has been uneven at best, and even the quarterback success," and he's pointing at Shedeur Sanders in this case, "was framed internally as a value pick because he fell, not necessarily the result of a targeted plan." I kind of think this question comes down to one thing. Do you trust him to evaluate the quarterback? More than anything. I mean, the other stuff, yes. Do you trust him and whoever's involved to evaluate the quarterback?
Well, I've said this many times before, and I'm going to say it again. I think they should establish a quarterback committee. I think they should hire a few consultants, and they should use those consultants to help them figure out their quarterback situation. It's the most important position on the team. And I would go out and I would find maybe some retired guys who have been really good at it in their careers. Maybe you bring Bill Polian in to help you out with your quarterback evaluation. Maybe you bring in a former quarterback or two who seems to have a handle on that type of situation. But I would form some kind of a little consultant, some kind of little board, a quarterback board or a quarterback committee to help you get this right. And I wouldn't necessarily rely too heavily on them. I mean, if you completely disagree with them and you decide that Fernando Mendoza is your guy and the committee is telling you that he's not, I still think that you can rely most heavily on your own eyes and your own personnel department, but I would open it up. I would open it up and I would not take any chances. And that's just something that I don't think teams do enough of. You don't have to have too much pride to think that you don't need outside help to make this very important decision. And it's been tough. And they haven't necessarily gotten it right. Even in 2018, right? I mean, we can go back to 2018. And they 100% were so confident that they were nailing it on Baker Mayfield and that he was the best quarterback in the NFL draft that year. And it hasn't turned out that way. I mean, he's turned out to be a good, serviceable quarterback and a winning quarterback. And we don't even know completely 100% what he's capable of yet. He might still have a Super Bowl in him. But they passed on two NFL MVPs. They passed on two NFL MVPs in Josh Allen and in Lamar Jackson. And it's tough to get it right. It's really, really hard to get it right. There's so many things that you have to take into account when you're bringing a quarterback into your organization. And it's not just your on the field talent. It's everything else that goes along with being a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's dealing with the media. It's leading your football team. It's being the face of the franchise. It's answering for things. It's doing everything that you have to do to lead your team all the way to the Super Bowl. And it's not easy at all. So I would form the committee
and
I would let them roll.
I think another thing too, and I've been thinking about this. So you mentioned Baker Mayfield, and this is a different. It's a little bit of a different discussion because the Browns passed on two of quote unquote those guys in that draft. But I also think it doesn't have to be, this guy's going to be Patrick Mahomes. This guy's going to be Josh Allen. Because the reality is there's only like four of those guys, four or five of those guys. And there's 32 teams in the NFL, and your job is to win, whether you have one of those guys or not. So you've got to be able to identify if one of like those guys is not available, one of those four or five guys is not available. Who is someone who's good, top 10 to top 15 guy that you can bring into your organization, build around and win with, and then decide what, if that means giving up some picks. If you think Fernando Mendoza can be that guy, maybe you got to give up some picks to do it and decide if that's worth it. I think you can go crazy if you're just chasing the next Patrick Mahomes, chasing the next Josh Allen or whatever. Like those guys don't just grow on trees. You've got to be able to identify a guy that you can win with. And again, if he's not an elite top five guy, figure it out. The Eagles have figured it out with Jalen Hurts. I know they're having a rough year right now, but they've been to a Super Bowl and they've won another one. Like, find a guy that you can win with. If there's, Lance Rison always likes to say there's guys you win because of and guys you win with. If you can't find a guy you win because of, find a really good guy you can win with and make it work.
Right. And the other thing that you can do, instead of trying to draft and develop a quarterback, which is a hard thing to do. It's hard to get it right. Again, all you have to do is look at 2018 to know how difficult it was to get it right. But the other thing that you can do is to find a quarterback that can revive his career for you here in terms of a Mac Jones or someone. I mean, if you were going to try to do that this year, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, I mean, those guys are some of the guys that you can try to bring in and figure out if you can strike gold with one of those guys and win games right away. If you want to win next year and really start to put your fan base, back in your corner and get people excited again, maybe you don't put the football team through rookie ball again. Maybe you don't do that. And I think that's part of the reason why Deshaun Watson is going to be on this roster next year, because I think that they believe that there is still something left in the tank for Deshaun Watson. Nobody knows if that's true or not. It's really hard to tell. And I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket because you just don't know how that's going to go. So I don't know that you could go into the season with, I think it would be hard to go into the season with, say, like a Deshaun and a Shedeur and think that you're going to be good to go. I just don't know if that's going to get you to winning as fast as you want to get to winning next year. And if you are going to put your veterans like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and some of those guys and Jerry Jeudy through another stressful season with losing and inconsistent quarterback play, the wheels start to come off, when you start to do something like that. So I don't know. They've got some tough decisions to make here, including trying to figure out, is Shedeur Sanders going to be your quarterback of the future? I think that's a very, very tricky eval. I really do. I think it's going to be tough to get to the end of this season and know if he can be your guy enough to the point where you're like, no, we don't have to draft one of those quarterbacks. I think it's going to be a tough call.
Okay, so as you can imagine, we got some questions about Shedeur Sanders. So let's go ahead and go down that road now. This comes from Tom Bays in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Mary Kay, what key areas does Shedeur Sanders have to improve upon for the upcoming game against the Bills? And we can even just stretch that out for the remainder of this season and potentially if he's given an opportunity into next season.
Well, there are a couple of things that I can identify right off the bat that Shedeur is going to have to do. He has to get a comfort level with throwing to other guys besides Harold Fannin Jr., okay? He targeted Harold 14 times yesterday. Nobody else was targeted more than 4 times. Now, Dave Njoku was not out there. Cedric Tillman played very sparingly. I haven't even looked up the snaps, but he didn't play that much coming off of a concussion and a rib injury. And I just don't think that Shedeur is trusting what he's seeing that much in other guys. He trusts Harold Fannin. But guess what happens when you're throwing the ball most of the time to Harold Fannin, who is also a rookie like Shedeur? Your defense is going to be onto that. And they're going to be looking for that pass to go to Harold Fannin. They're going to be looking to jump that route. They're going to be looking to win that contested catch that they know is going to him. So you have to be able to mix it up more. You have to be able to do that. Did you look up the snaps for Harold by any chance?
I did. I just looked up for Tillman 7 snaps.
Oh, for Tillman,
So
seven.
yeah,
Okay.
so Tillman played 7 snaps, and uh, I did notice he got a little bit dinged up on a run play early in the game when they were backed up on the goal line. Now he didn't like leave the game. He was back. He was in the game later, but yeah, he only played 7 snaps coming off that concussion.
Yeah, so think about it. You don't really have any much going yet with your number one receiver, Jerry Judy. And then your number two receiver is coming off of a rib injury and a concussion and plays 7 snaps in the football game. And your starting tight end is not in the football game in David Njoku. And so what do you find yourself doing? Going back to the same well over and over and over again with Harold Fannin. Now, he did throw the ball a number of times to Isaiah Bond, and he has established a nice explosive connection with Isaiah Bond. But there's just not enough going on in terms of being able to spread the ball around so that the defenders are not reading your eyes, telegraphing your passes, and going out there and taking the ball away either from Harold Fannin or before he could get to it. And 2 of the interceptions were on passes intended for Harold. So you can't keep going to that well. That's a number one thing that I think that he needs to do. He needs to diversify however that's going to look. And they need to coach it up so that he feels comfortable diversifying, whether it be different routes, whether it be different personnel. I don't know what the situation is going to be yet. Maybe David Njoku will be back, and that would probably help. But he's got to stop doing that. And then the other thing is he's got to know when to fold them. You have to know again when to throw it away. Don't press. Don't try to make the big play. And that's what happened. By the time he got to the third quarter, he just started to press. And that's when he threw the interception that was intended for Harold Fannin in the fourth quarter, his third interception of the game. So those are some things. I mean, he's just got to continue to figure out how to decipher what defenses are doing to him. And when he sits down and he studies the film of this Bears game, he's going to see how they changed up coverages, how they disguised things, and how they tried to trick him and cross him up. And all teams are going to try to do that to him because that's what you do to a rookie quarterback. You try to confuse them, you give them different looks, and you change things up post snap as quickly as you possibly can. And so he's just going to have to figure out how to read those defenses as quickly as he can, understand what they're doing, and get that ball out and let it rip and get it to the right person. It's just hard. It's just a lot to try to pick up on and be efficient with when you are a young rookie quarterback who just started throwing to the ones like 4 weeks ago. And so those are some of the things. I don't think he's doing a horrible job on, running out of the back of the end zone and drifting and retreating and all those kinds of things. I don't think he's really doing that to the extent that we thought he might. So he's got to continue to do that. He's got to try to continue to not take those big, huge negative sacks. But this time in this game, of course, the key is going to be not throwing those interceptions and protecting the football. And that team that he just played against was the best in the NFL at taking the ball away. So it won't be as bad, I don't think, against the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple sacks yesterday that were on him, but like that, I still feel like it's just a rookie being a rookie sometimes, and like that's okay. And I think, I actually think one of the positives is when I was watching some of his snaps yesterday, and I saw this a little bit against the Titans, and it was just easier against the Titans. I feel like he is trying really hard to like break those bad habits. Like I feel like he's thinking about it. Like it's in his mind when you watch him step up in the pocket, when you watch him slide around, and he still makes some of the bad habit mistakes. But I think there is a conscious effort there. Like, I need to step up in the pocket here. I need to do this. And I think that's slowing him down a little, but that's not a bad thing. Like, you know, for him to be successful, he's got to speed that up and he's got to just do that as second nature. So I think part of his problem is he's really working on breaking some of those bad habits. And that's a good sign that the message is getting through to him, that he knows what he needs to do. But because of that, it's kind of slowing things down a little bit. And so he's getting sacked, or he's not getting the ball out on time, or he's not, you know. So now the next test is, as he's slowly breaking these habits, does it become second nature? And then does that kind of start to speed things back up? And now all of a sudden the ball is getting out on time. Now he's not taking sacks. Now his eyes are down the field the whole time. Like, I think some of the bad we saw yesterday was actually a result of maybe some good things, that he is getting up to speed on sort of how he has to handle himself in the pocket and sort of how he has to do things. But it's got to become second nature at some point, and that's going to take time. That's not going to happen in a week or 2 weeks. Like, it's going to take a while for that stuff to become second nature to the point where he's kind of just back to playing football again.
Yeah, and even Bill Musgrave was talking about the other day, this is not golf where you have time to stand up there and have a bunch of swing thoughts. You don't have time. This is a lightning quick football game, and it will start to slow down for him over time, but it does take time. It does take time for that to happen. And sometimes you really don't see those lights come on until the second season. And think about this. I mean, he just got thrown into the fire this year, and he is learning on the fly. He's learning his personnel. He's learning some of the plays. He's learning. He never took a snap with the first team until the week before he started his first game. So he has been behind the eight ball in how this has all worked out. And by the time he gets to next season, he will have assimilated a lot of this information, and he will start to play faster, and the game will have slowed down, and he will understand what to do when he gets this look or that look, and it will start to come together. You hear quarterbacks say that all the time. Jaden Daniels talked about how it was night and day when he went from his rookie year to his sophomore year, and how much more comfortable he felt in the offseason program and things like that. And you hear that from a lot of rookie quarterbacks, that the lights just have to come on. And it does. It takes time. And once again, when you're talking about Shedeur, he's only going to have 7 starts under his belt. So the lights aren't even going to be coming on for him next year as quickly as they would be for a Jaden Daniels or somebody like that, who had started the whole entire rookie season. So we'll have to see how the development goes. As I wrote today, he took a step back yesterday. He took a step back, and even though there were so many extenuating circumstances for him in this football game against the Bears, he did take a step back, and he was not as accurate as he had been in his first 3 starts. He was off on a number of his throws. His completion percentage is nowhere near as high as you need it to be a good pro in the NFL. It's hovering around 53%. I mean, that's not going to cut it in the NFL. His rating dropped to a 68. So these are things he's going to have to look at. He's going to have to find far more completions than he's finding. And he's going to have to find them with people that he might not 100% trust right away. And so we'll just have to see how he comes along. But he's got to bounce back against the Bills. That was not a good game for him yesterday.
And again, I just think that speaks to how hard it's going to be to get a real evaluation on him over these next few weeks, which just makes this decision that much more difficult for this football team moving forward. Okay, we're going to wrap up the Hey Mary Kay edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast there. I'm actually doing this in an airport business lounge, and some security guy just came in and asked me some questions. So we're going to wrap this up before I get arrested, Mary Kay, so that I can actually be in
Don't
Berea.
get arrested, Dan.
I'll try not to. Okay, that'll do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Those questions were from our Football Insider subscribers, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. You can find us on Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter's Orange Brown Talk. And of course, if you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed. And our YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great.